Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be discussing the 1998 comedy classic, The Big Lebowski, starring Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Flea. It's an all-star cast. Sam Elliott. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. You can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Take a minute. Give us the big thumbs up, okay? Tell me you like it. You can also go to our page on YouTube, add KD9575, hit the subscribe button. It's free, and you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. Any interesting articles or facts, figures about movies we love, I put it out there, and you'll be the first to know, okay? There you have it. The Big Lebowski. In this movie, the dude, who's kind of a LA slacker, bowling enthusiast, with a case of mistaken identity, some thugs bust into his apartment, shove his head in the toilet, demanding their money back. He doesn't know what they're talking about. Evidently, there's another person that shares the same name as him. They're both named Jeff Lebowski. Now, the dude just goes by the dude, El Duder, El Duderino, something like that. No one calls him Jeff or Lebowski. So he quickly says, you know what, you got the wrong guy. But before they leave, the thugs go and pee on his rug. He's very upset about this. So he doesn't know who these thugs are, but he does know now they're looking for the other Jeff Lebowski. So he goes, tracks down this guy. He's a millionaire, married to a young, beautiful trophy wife, who evidently, because she gets an allowance from her much older, much wealthier husband, but she's not living within her means. She owes debt to people all over towns. Evidently, she'd borrow money from a loan shark who sent out these thugs to get her. So he just feels like the millionaire should replace his rug. Okay? These guys are looking for you, man. Hook me up. The millionaire sends him packing, kicks him out the door. He's very upset. The dude goes bowling with his buddies Walter. Walter's this kind of neoconservative Vietnam veteran who's just always exploding in rage and violence. Evidently, this is a very important part of the dude's life. He hangs out bowling, smokes weed, just hangs out, doesn't have a lot of ambition beyond, hanging out, doing his thing. So, very upset. Now, the Big Lebowski, the millionaire, calls the dude back in and says, hey, my young, beautiful trophy wife has been kidnapped, and the kidnappers demand that I deliver $1 million. So, dude, we want you to be the courier. Take the $1 million, give it to the bad guys, the kidnappers, and I'll pay you 20 grand. Okay? The dude decides to tell his buddy Walter about what's going on. Walter decides to go to help him out, go along with him on the plan. But Walter's plan is to keep the $1 million themselves and give an old bag of dirty laundry to the kidnappers, because he feels, hey, she's a young trophy wife who owes a lot of money. She probably has kidnapped herself. There's probably no real kidnappers. She's doing this all just to get some money from her husband who won't give her any more money. So his attitude, we'll keep the money, we'll give them the old bag of dirty laundry. Eventually, the young trophy wife will come back to town. Hey, everything's good, and we're up $1 million. What do you think? I don't want to spoil everything, all the machinations that occur. There's a lot of twists and turns, okay? Suffice it to say, it's a very complicated plot. Big Lebowski, directed by the Coen brothers, who you know did Raising Arizona, Fargo, the list goes on and on. They wrote this, and it's basically meant to be kind of a Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe kind of detective plot, if you notice. There's, somebody's been kidnapped, we need your help to do it, but there's a lot of twists and turns. It's not who you think. we're trying to get to the bottom of the mystery kind of thing. So they had that idea, that purpose. But, of course, they want to do it their own crazy Coen Brothers method. So they have the central character is this guy, the Dude, who's actually based upon a real Hollywood producer, LA type, who's also called the Dude, named Jeff Dowd, who was kind of a political activist back in the 60s, and then eventually became kind of this slackery producer type. So they wanted him to be the central character of this kind of drama. Normally you'd have the private eye doing this, but now we have this slacker guy in the middle of this. And they said, okay, to contrast that, we want to have his buddy Walter be this conservative, kind of gun-toting, Vietnam veteran type. So they'd known a famous Hollywood director named John Milius, who basically was that kind of guy. So they brought these contrasting figures together as to, in fact, the center of this. And they wrote it up. They actually wrote it around the same time they wrote another movie, Barton Fink, back in the late 80s. And they were like, we want Jeff Bridges to play this part of the Dude. Jeff Bridges was busy doing this. John Goodman, who plays Walter, was busy filming Roseanne. So they went ahead and filmed Fargo first. Then they came back to The Big Lebowski. And Jeff Bridges took a look at the script, and he literally thought, he says to them, did you know me in high school or something? Because this is very much like the way he used to be back in the 60s and early 70s. Kind of the long-haired slacker type. So it was very easy for him to kind of slip back into that mindset. He's like, there were a lot of similarities between me and the Dude. Obviously, I was a little bit more creative while this was going on. I wasn't as much of a slacker, but that same kind of thing. The costume that the Dude wears throughout this movie are Jeff Bridges' real clothes. He went and just got his own stuff. His sandals, the crazy shorts, and the sweaters, and all that stuff. That's all Jeff Bridges' special accoutrement. And to prepare for the role, other than just kind of bringing his own past experiences, the Coen brothers said the only direction they gave him is that Jeff Bridges would come up before each scene and be like, guys, did the Dude burn one out before filming this, before the scene? And if the answer was yes, which it usually was, he would rub his hands over his eyes to get that kind of red, smoky pot eye to get him ready for it. So, hilarious. So you had John Goodman playing Walter, like I said, was based upon the famous Hollywood director. And they came up with all these styles, his flat top hair, the crazy chin strap beard, the glasses that he always wears. They all came up with this total package to fit into this. And they always had John Goodman in mind for this. Steve Buscemi, who is one of the main characters in Fargo, main actors in Fargo, plays Donnie, kind of an underutilized role in this, as kind of like another buddy of theirs, who doesn't seem to know what's going on. He's always like kind of interjecting, like, what's happening? Like he was busy bowling in the middle of the story. And John Goodman's constantly telling him to shut the F up, that sort of thing. That's kind of a joke that comes back to Fargo, because in Fargo, his character was kind of a motor mouth, constantly speaking. So it was kind of, it's all very complicated. John Turturro plays another bowler, and he thought his part was going to be much bigger, but he's just kind of like this guy who appears, very flamboyant, flamenco dancer type bowler. And they allowed him to kind of flesh out the character, add all sorts of crazy little things to it. All the events that occur in this story were based upon stories they'd heard. Somebody's car getting stolen and kind of tracking down the car thief because they left a school assignment in the car. The fact that they knew somebody who was a sex offender, and they're like, oh, that'd be funny to make John Turturro a sex offender. Put that in there. This is much more of a character piece. They're like, the plot is needlessly complicated, and really it doesn't have anything to do with anything. At the end of the movie, not much is accomplished, not much is solved, not much is changed. Sam Elliott plays the narrator, who's kind of this old-timey cowboy type, who again doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the thing, but he's meant to be kind of the third-person perspective in the narrator. It's very bizarre and complicated. When this first came out, It didn't do very well in the box office. I actually saw this in the theater, and I have to tell you, wasn't that impressed. I found it more bizarre than funny, because there's a lot of these musical dance montages that appear throughout it. Not my cup of tea, and America agreed with me initially. However, over the years, it has become a huge cult phenomenon. Huge cult phenomenon. In fact, they actually have a Lebowski Fest every year in like multiple parts of the country. It has formed a religion called the Church of Latter-day Dudes, where it's like a philosophy on life of just man, I can't worry about all that kind of stuff. You know, very kind of slackery and laid back. It's been added to the registry of important films in Washington, D.C. They literally look at critics' responses to it, and many of them change. Like they came out and said, "Oh, this is bizarre and unfunny," to now it's one of my favorite movies. Jeff Goldblum. Jeff Bridges goes to these conferences to like talk about his experiences on the show. John Goodman has talked about how this is like his favorite movie he's ever been in. You know, it has become a huge cult phenomenon, which is why I talk about it on the B Movie Club. Hey, it's Entertainment Weekly said it was one of the top 50 best B movies of all time, cult films of all time. What are you gonna do? I've watched it recently, and while it does have a few scenes that I laughed out loud about, it is so bizarre that it's hard for me to get my head around it. Flea has a very small role in this. He plays one of the nihilists these German nihilists who allegedly kidnapped Bunny, the trophy wife. They used to be a part of a band in the 80s, kind of this German punk electronic band called Autobahn. I just think it's hilarious. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers doing a crazy German accent. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. Tara Reid plays the trophy wife Bunny, who evidently beat out Charlize Theron for this role. What are you going to do? Hilarious. This movie currently has an 80% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I would recommend this movie to anybody who can just kind of turn off their brain and just let the weirdness wash over them and appreciate it. You can still go out and see this movie like a numerous midnight showings across the country. People love this thing. They love it. And of course it is still streaming instantly on Netflix. So rush out and see it if you're so inclined. Okay? Next week, I'm moving away from the comedy genre back to action. The Tom Cruise epic Top Gun. Hey, streaming it instantly on Netflix. Rush out and see it. Send any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, questions, and I may talk about it on the show. Don't forget to send any movie suggestions, okay? Anything you want to talk about, any movies you want me to discuss, let me know. I'm here for you. That's what this is all about, okay? Good times had by all. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote, and here it is. That rug really tied the room together. So there you have it. Thank you for joining us. Next week, Top Gun starring Tom Cruise. Be well.